Cavs Magic was super on brand, dude. We talked about this as the throwback, ugly offense, slow, low offensive rating series, and that's what it was in this one. This was the series that we differed on, though, out of all the ones that we've talked about today. You took Orlando. I was surprised by that. I took Cleveland. How do you feel about that pick after game one?
Don't feel great. There is such a large offensive discrepancy in terms of just creation between Cleveland and Orlando. That was evident, and primarily it's just Cleveland's ability to exert rim pressure and to get downhill, to get this team in rotation. You know, Orlando just couldn't create an advantage where they're getting easy offense or getting Cleveland in trouble. You know, That's the real difference to me, is that Mitchell and Garland both are so quick and so fast and can explode past these perimeter defenders that, like, even if they're not getting a shot at the rim, because, you know, Orlando and Cleveland both have great rim deterrence on their ends, if they're getting that slide guy, they're going to kick out. And it's just creating a great shot where Orlando consistently struggled to create great shots. You know, Garland doesn't have a great game, but he's 14, 3 and 8, creating advantages. Mitchell goes 32 and 3. And I think there is honestly an argument that you could make that in terms of self-creation, Cleveland has the 3 best perimeter creators at the guard spot in this series. And I'm talking,
sure.
Yeah, Garland, Mitchell, and then Karis LeVert. Like, I love Cole Anthony. I love Markelle Fultz. I love Anthony Black. I love, you know, a lot of Orlando. But I mean, there's a difference, man. I love Jalen Suggs too. There's just such a lack of offensive creation for Orlando. And, you know, for a lot of this game, I was just waiting for Banchero or Wagner to take over. And these are big spots, but it's like in these lulls, in these offensive stretches where nothing is going right, I kept waiting and going, hey, guys, you're not getting the lid off the basket. This is where your best player needs to grab the ball and go create something. And one, Banchero and Wagner just physically couldn't do it. 2, they didn't want to. And that's where I get frustrated, where it's like there just has to be a self-awareness. You know, you're struggling. You're their best players. You got to go make something happen. Neither of them could create those advantages, and neither of them wanted to. Paolo, I felt like we talked about this in our preview, and you said this was a big reason of why you were picking Cleveland. They baited Paolo into a lot of his bad tendencies, you know, prone to settling for pull-up jumpers. And it's also just a reality of Paolo as a basketball player. I think Paolo's going to figure it out one day where he is one hell of a rim pressure, one hell of a playmaker because of his rim pressure. I think the pull-up jump shooting is going to come along. It's all going to come together for Paolo. I believe in him. But he sometimes doesn't want to get to the rim. He's okay with shooting that pull-up jumper all game long. And I disagreed with you. I didn't think Cleveland matched up with them well physically on the wings. They do. You don't need to be super quick-footed or agile to defend Paolo. You just need to be thick and sturdy. And unfortunately you need to be thick and sturdy to get up on Paolo, man. You got
George Niang is thick and sturdy.
You got the minivan George Niang. You got Isaac Okoro. You got Max Strus. All of these guys are compact and strong, and so they do match up with Paolo. If Paolo was quicker off the bounce, maybe they couldn't hang with him. I thought the wing tandem for Cleveland did a phenomenal job of walling off any drives from Wagner and Banchero. And so that's where I'm really concerned with Orlando, because I picked them in this series. I just don't know how they create any kind of easy offense. Carson, the guard tandem, the guard group that we saw from Orlando, this is Suggs, Fultz, Anthony, and Gary Harris. They shot, this is a combine from those 4. 4 of 33 from the field.
Let's go.
And 1 of 16 from behind the arc. So
wait, Suggs made 4 shots, so the other guys went 0 of 17. Let's go.
So basically, you are asking yourself the question, if you're a Magic fan, if you're pulling for Orlando, or if you pick them in the series like me, how does Orlando create easy offense? I think the thing that they have to do, well, there's a few things. The first thing that Orlando has to do, Banchero and Wagner have to want to take over. They have to take the role as lead creators. But 2, I think they have to consciously try to attack Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. Whoever the guard is on the court, you have to get that switch. You have to go and attack them, because I don't think they're creating advantages against the wings here. Two, I think Orlando has to do a better job of doing the little things offensively. Offense is not going to be easy. So what does that mean? That means when Suggs is driving from the baseline, that means when anybody is trying to get downhill, you're cutting off of them. You're getting to the rim. This is not a good perimeter shooting team. And so the reason I think it's way more important for them to cut and get to the basket, if they're missing a jumper, you got another guy around the rim to grab a rebound, or two, your guy hopefully falls asleep and you can help him because your guy is getting walled off and you can give him another guy to kick to, or just another guy for the defense to pay attention to that might create a shot on the backside. Like, you just have to do more little things offensively to try to create easy shots. And I think that's just consciously making an effort of cutting to the basket, of getting to the rim when shots go up and trying to get more opportunities. It's going to be a grimy series, so you got to do the grimy little things to win this one. And I thought there were stretches where Orlando could have capitalized on their on how much they stifled Cleveland defensively. I don't know how long this stretch went on. After they made 5 threes, Cleveland missed. I know they missed 15 straight. I don't know if it continued. I know they at least missed 15 straight threes. During that stretch, it was imperative that Orlando capitalized on that and created offense. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog whining. She's sleeping. I need Juju to calm down a little bit here.
Juju, settle down.
Yeah.
Named after OJ, fun fact.
Named after Juice, man. My favorite, of course.
Your favorite football player.
I thought Orlando could have capitalized on that stretch a little more when they were just cold. Like, you have to make the most of that opportunity to build a lead. They didn't. Orlando's offense was also similarly cold. And on the flip side, I thought Cleveland did a phenomenal job of staggering their stars' minutes. Mitchell and Garland just executed when they needed to. And the star of the show for Cleveland, in my opinion, was your boy Evan Mobley, Carson. Evan Mobley, to me, unlocks Cleveland's playoff potential. He raises the ceiling on what they can do on the grand scale. And I'm not saying this season, but long-term, if they're going to keep this core together, it's mismatch attacking. It is knocking down shots off the dribble. It is adding a different dynamic to the offense that you just don't have with two plotting bigs. Mobley hitting his jumper like this, Mobley attacking mismatches like this, gives you the ability to play him alongside Jared Allen, because defenses have to respect him out to the floor and defend him out to the three-point line. They have to match you guys physically, because you have two guys that if you get a switch on either of the bigs, they can attack mismatches. It just opens up a completely different dynamic that Cleveland didn't have in the playoffs last year. I'm not going to switch on any of my picks. I went flip-flop way too much last year. So I'm just going to stick to my guns on all my series. But if you were going to ask me what series I was least confident in my pick in, it would by far be Orlando and Cleveland. There is such a drastic offensive talent and skill gap between the lead creators for Orlando and Cleveland.
I'd be shocked if Orlando won this series, like genuinely shocked. Their only prayer was that Donovan Mitchell didn't look like himself, because for the most part, post All-Star break, dealing with the knee injury, he hadn't, but then the last couple games of the regular season, he did look good. And that's why I was encouraged enough to think we would get mostly normal Donovan Mitchell. And we did. And he's just so many levels above everybody else on the floor as a shot creator that in an ugly series like this, that's the difference maker. Orlando does not have enough offensive pop to win a playoff series. Offense is this bad. Just don't do it unless you're the Miami Heat and you have a freakishly great coach and playoff defense and guys who just decide, all right, we'll shoot 45% from three and Jimmy will take his level up. I'm talking about last year's Heat, not as though they literally do that every year, but the precedent is pretty clear. They are below the threshold of offensive ugliness where your defense can just pull you through it. They just scored the fewest points in any playoff game across the league that we've seen in 2 years. They shot under 33% from the field and 21% from three in this game. They posted a half-court offensive rating, Logan, of 60.4. They were absolutely overwhelmed in this matchup. Cleveland has plus defenders everywhere. Yeah.
One more time. Can you run that number back at me?
Half-court offensive rating of 60.4, Logan. Something that if the 1960s Celtics held you to that, you would say, boy, we had a really, really bad day. Like, it's almost unfathomable. And that's just the reality. This offense is way too limited. And Cleveland's defense is way too good. Like, they have a phenomenal combination of dudes who can guard Franz and Paolo at a really high level. This wealth of big, stout wings, as you talked about, which is the prototype to guard really both those guys. And then also two bigs who can guard in space and hold up with both of them, who are also great rim protectors. Mobley made multiple awesome plays at the rim. He and Allen also controlled the offensive glass, or the defensive glass too. They had 29 combined rebounds. And Orlando just struggled to penetrate the defense. They didn't really have enough quickness from the perimeter, and the spot up shooting was so brutal that there was nobody holding Cleveland accountable for helping aggressively. And you talk about Paolo not stepping up and having the best game. Nobody other than him could do anything. So I'm not going to blame Paolo in this one. Like, it is a real limitation of this roster. Paolo is clearly the weakest offensive number one in the playoff field. The decision-making, the shot selection, just the overall shot quality, like, he's not as mature and refined as all these other guys. That's not at all unreasonable for a second-year player. I guess Miami without Jimmy maybe would be like the new team with the ugliest number one option offensively. But this was a fine debut for him. Like, he had some nice moments, had that physical drive on Mobley early, did a nice job attacking in transition. Yes, he settled for a lot of pull-up jumpers and catch-and-shoot jumpers as well, and he's not a great jump shooter, but his shot making was solid. He made some nice passes to open shooters who just missed. He did not have a good offensive game, but he was like their only source of offense at all. 9 turnovers is rough, and Cleveland did a great job of putting good defenders on him in single coverage and then also bothering him with help. There were a couple situations where he pump faked off the catch and then he tried to drive, and then his handle wasn't quite tight enough, or a second defender would come at him from the nail, and then that forced turnovers a couple times. He forecasted some passes. He just made some bad passes in this one. Jared Allen guards him super well and has been the primary matchup in several of the regular season meetings between these two teams, and just physically matches up so well. His hands were so good. Mobley, again, like, Paolo has the strength advantage, but his tendency is just to settle a bit too quickly. And against Mobley, who is so long, like, he takes those tough turnarounds, and it's just not good offense. And he couldn't move George Niang. Like, honestly, couldn't really do anything with him. So it turned into a lot of jumpers and a lot of turnovers, and that's just not a good formula. But nobody else made a shot alongside him. This is just the reality for Orlando. They're not a good enough offense. Cleveland may be a flawed offense, but they have Donovan Mitchell. And Donovan Mitchell was pretty good as a pull-up shooter, but he was able to get a step consistently and then navigate the paint. He's just like one of the most beautiful basketball players. I honestly think when he's on, just that combination of body control and athleticism with skill, like his ability to euro through the paint, to split doubles, to spin off of guys, to use a gather, and then his touch finishing over Orlando's length in the paint was so impressive. You get this Donovan Mitchell, Cleveland will win, period, point blank. No doubt in my mind.
No doubt. And the thing that I think makes this even harder for Orlando to overcome is that they don't have any two-way guards. In a lot of their lineup constructions,
well, they don't have any offensive guards except for Cole Anthony.
That's fair, man.
Honestly, not the kind of guy who it's like, all right, Cole, go carry us from the perimeter in a playoff series.
Exactly. And so it's frustrating because, Suggs will wall up Garland and Mitchell, and he is by far the best guy that they can throw at them. He's all defense. You throw him out there with Fultz, and it's like, okay, well, we have zero shooting. You throw him out there with Gary Harris or Cole Anthony, and it's like, okay, well, we have a liability on the court that Garland and Mitchell can go at every single possession. It's just...
Well, not Gary Harris. Gary Harris defends well.
Gary Harris is okay. I just mean that there's going to be a liability on the court, really at all times, where I think that Cleveland can kind of just go at. And again, I thought that they would be able to limit Mitchell and Garland. They can limit them a little bit, but it's like Mitchell and Garland don't even have to play great, in my opinion, to win this series. They just have to play like good enough, because Orlando has zero. I didn't think it could get uglier than Cleveland Knicks last season. Yeah, it can, man. We can get Orlando in the playoff field, and I'm proud of Orlando for being so ahead of schedule. This is a very, very young roster. For them to have defended this well this season and to have found their identity with such a young core and such a young team, it's very, very impressive. But I think they're outmatched by skill, experience, and size in this matchup.
Yeah.
So big credit to
You've seen the
Orlando.
light. You've seen the light. This is what I tried to
Yeah.
tell you. I thought back to some of the conversations we had, and I remembered you said, "You think there's that big of a gap between these offenses?" And I said, "Yes."
Uh-huh.
Orlando is an exceptionally bad offense to be in the playoffs, and they don't have a Donovan Mitchell who generates good shot quality for you on his own. And then I said the only like weakness theoretically on this Cleveland defense is at the point of attack, even though engaged Mitchell is pretty solid, but like that is the point you would want to attack. And Orlando does not have the guards to exploit that whatsoever. And we've seen that is the case.
The funniest part of this game by far, also, I want to say this, dude, it's awesome living on the West Coast and waking up to having a basketball game
I
just
know
like
it's so
on,
fun.
like cook
Well, I was
breakfast.
up at 6 tilling the fields, but yeah, by the time that I had lunch, the games were on. It was great.
um, it's nice to have them like ready to go immediately. But uh, it was so funny to me that weird beef we had at the beginning of this game between we had the George Niang Mo Wagner
I
battle, man,
know.
and it just got like weirdly chippy, and we had these like two nobodies talking. I'm not calling these guys nobodies or NBA players, but it's like,
They're role
fellas,
players.
it took, I don't know, man. It took like 10 minutes and we had like 2 minutes of actual game time go by. And it's like, guys, this is Magic Cavs. Let's get over ourselves. Yeah. Like, why are we doing all
Mhm.
this? Pretty embarrassing for the parties involved, I'll say.
Mo
Um,
Wagner is a genuine supervillain, bro. Well, not super. He doesn't have that sort of weight to his name, but you look at him and you just think, what an insidious fellow. And then you look at his brother and you think, oh, what a lovely guy. But like Mo Wagner, first of all, looks just like Bill Skarsgård. So he could have played Pennywise. He could have played Bill Skarsgård's character in this movie called what was it called? Barbarian, where he's just like supposed to be this super guy who you look at and you're just like, oh, he creeps me out. That's Mo Wagner. In terms of basketball, he's all right. A couple more guys who I do want to give props to. Mobley and Allen, both. You mentioned Mobley was the star of the show early. I was over the moon. When he confidently stepped into 2 catch and shoot threes in the first quarter and nailed them both, I thought, praise be, Evan Mobley has arrived. He has come to us all, and we are so blessed to witness this. But like then even more so, I was like, oh my God, he's decisively getting to his hook. He's spinning off a dude in the post. He's attacking multiple mismatches super successfully. And all game, he was really good defensively, and he was really good on the glass, where he wasn't last year. New York is like an exceptional sort of physical team. They're always so great on the glass, but he and Allen both were much better in this game against a team that is still big and physical, but his offense was a lot worse in the second half. It started being like Evan Mobley heat checks, which is a turnaround over Jonathan Isaac or Paolo Banchero. And at that point, I'm like, no, thanks, Evan. We don't need to do that. If you can knock down a spot up jumper and you can attack a clear mismatch, like brother, I'm thrilled because we know that you are going to have a big impact defensively. And Allen was even better on the glass, handled Paolo well in single coverage, and finished with authority, dude. Like that was another thing in this game. We can talk about spot up shooting, we can talk about perimeter creation and dribble penetration, but it's also the interior finishing because Orlando, when they do get into the paint, they don't have a dump off target like that. Like, not only are they working at a size disadvantage, they don't have an athletic big five who can dunk over Jonathan Isaac twice in a quarter. And that was awesome to see Allen be like that aggressive, that ready for the moment. Because on the flip side, I remember there was this one sequence in the first quarter where Paolo made a really nice dump off pass to Isaac, and Mobley and Allen just like stuffed him twice. So the lights were not too bright for Jared Allen this time. Good news. Very happy for him on that front. And Cleveland's just a lot better. They had been playing bad basketball, but a lot of that was with Donovan Mitchell out, and they still have flaws, but they're not going to get exposed against the Orlando Magic. Do you have any hope for Orlando in this series?
Very little. I'm pretty disappointed and demoralized after game one. And like, of course, Gary Harris will shoot better. Cole Anthony will shoot better. I think Markelle Fultz
Everybody will shoot
and
better. They had a
they'll,
historically brutal.
yeah, like they'll be a little better, but
They won't shoot that much better.
I at this point, I have moved the needle from Orlando and 7 grimy series to, man, I hope these guys win a game. I just don't want to see the Magic get swept.
They could, dude. Looking at all these series, it's just really tough when you can't
And,
generate decent half court offense. And Cleveland's not great there, but there is a real gap.
and I can't say that I can't say that I'm surprised. One, you mentioned that I can't believe that offensive rating number you threw out is real. That's
I
a
know.
disgusting number. But
I
two,
know.
one of the key numbers that we mentioned in the playoff preview leading up to this was they are 28th, this being Orlando, excuse me, in effective field goal percentage outside of the paint this season. And so it's just a reality who Orlando is as a basketball team. When they're going up against another team that is this good at deterring teams from
True
finishing
great
on
rim
the
protectors.
interior, it's like, wow. So you have taken away all of their offense and said, okay, let's go make some mid-range and some threes, guys. And I already gave you the numbers. Again,
Yeah.
the guard core shot 4 of 33 from the field and 1 of 16 from deep. It'll be better. I don't know how much better. So yeah, man, I just hope the Orlando Magic can win a game. I just want to hear that song, man. I just want to hear
We
that
all want to
song
hear it.
one time.
We all want to hear it. We don't get to see the beam because yikes, they went out a little sad. We don't need to talk about it. We don't need to talk about it. The positive takeaways from Orlando is they were awesome defensively, and they're top 3 defense in the league for a reason. And you mentioned like they could have capitalized more on Cleveland's cold streaks, but they capitalized somewhat. Like they had a 9-0 run, they had an 11-0 run. It's just their offense was so limited, but like just hellacious defense where they're applying intense ball pressure. The rotations are sharp. They're just on top of whoever has the ball in their hands. They're swarming everybody. Like coming out the gates in the second half, they forced 3 turnovers in 2 minutes, and then they were turning defense into offense, which is when they're going to be at their best. They also just have awesome defensive personnel, and starting Jonathan Isaac, they can like switch everything, which is a fun counter to have. The one downside with that is that it leads to more offensive rebounds for Cleveland because maybe Isaac can hold up on the perimeter against whoever, but Gary Harris, Jalen Suggs can't hold up on the interior when you're talking about the Cleveland bigs. So they're going to continue to defend well, but that's kind of a given in this series. Offensively, yeah, they will shoot better, but ultimately they just don't have the horses. They don't have the firepower. The one thing I would like to see them do more is try to pull the bigs into space and set up cuts, because this is a team that has been really good in terms of just their like cutting efficiency and volume this year. They have good athletes off ball, and they had a couple moments early in the game. Orlando plays like this hilarious brand of 5-out basketball where it's also like nobody's really a very good shooter. But when Jonathan Isaac is at the 5, and even when it's Wendell Carter, like you have to reasonably respect that guy. And so I thought they did a nice job. There was one specific instance where Paolo basically ran a fake handoff to Suggs. Suggs cut. Allen, I think, was matched up with Isaac at that point. So he was pulled out to the 3-point line, and then you just have a wide open paint. Do more of that, Jamal Mosley. But that's kind of it. And ultimately, you can kind of counter that by saying, all right, we're just not going to worry about whoever your floor spacer is. There's no good answers. Orlando doesn't have the personnel.
Yeah, and I really just think Orlando needs somebody who's going to step up and say, I want the ball. Like there are just noticeable moments in this game
I
where,
felt like
well,
Paolo
and
didn't fear the moment. He
I'm
just
not
had
saying
9 turnovers.
yeah, I'm not saying he feared the I guess Franz is probably the one that like there are just moments where it's an isolation. It's 1v1 with their guards, and their guards would get trapped or walled up. And I'm like, guys, it was Suggs one time in the corner where he's just trapped and it's nobody moved. They just let him stay
Mhm.
there. And I'm like, guys, you got to get to open space. Somebody's got to cut. Somebody's got to go get the ball. Like you just got to help him out a little bit. The offense is going to be better. I don't know how much though, man.